A very good morning to everyone. We are starting our session on Python for data science and machine learning, 8th January 2019. Objective of today's session would be to implement knowledge discovery process over housing data set in order to predict house prices. We will undergo 6 stages of machine learning framework, which includes data selection, data pre-processing, data transformation, data mining, and finally interpretation and evaluation. So we will be doing all these implementation of machine learning framework using Python programming language, and later we also will use Data Science Studio to get started with implementation of machine learning visually. So let's go for it. I have shared my image with you all. I've shared my screen with you guys. Now, just to bring the long story short, we will be implementing KDD process. And the KDD process has certain stages. So the stages are data selection. We will be implementing data selection, followed by we will be going for data pre-processing. Then we will proceed with data transformation. Post data transformation, we will do data mining in order to identify the appropriate mathematical equation which can predict our response variable. And once we are done with mining and once we have got that model, so we are going to perform interpretation and evaluation over the model. And using this interpretation and evaluation, we are going to get the knowledge. So once we get the knowledge, we are going to predict the future. So these stages we will be implementing in. The predicts for this session would be Python programming language. So we will also get started with a quick beginner approach of Python programming using Python 3.7. Okay. So let's get started with basic fundamentals and let's get a deep dive into machine learning. So as to share certain important resources which we will be utilizing today, the first one will be Python reference. So you can quickly get Python reference from their official website. And I am eager to get started with Python 3.7. So if you quickly search for Python reference, you will get these two websites, docs.python.org, wherein we can quickly get started with the latest stable version of Python, which is 3.7. So I would recommend you to quickly browse to the website docs.python.org so that I can quickly explain you in what sequence you can utilize Python and what all important terms and logical codes we need to understand so that we can implement them with machine learning and data science. So when you reach here on Python, docs.python.org/3, let me just quickly share the links with you on chat so that we are all on same page. I'm sending this information to you. So guys, you can quickly open docs.python.org version number 3. So this offers you documentation for latest Python version. The currently stable Python version is 3.7. And if you see, we have opened documentation of Python in English. There are certain other languages in which the reference is available. It is available in French, Japanese, and Korean. Moreover, these are the versions over which you can get the documentation and you can code. So Python 2.7 is available. And as far as version 3 is concerned, we have 3.5, 3.6, and 3.7. So these three are stable version. 3.5 should be avoided because it earlier had some security issues, but later the security issues has been fixed. But Python 3.7.2 has to offer a lot more with respect to Python and data science. And currently under development version of Python is 3.8. So I would be taking one more minute from you guys so that I can connect with my audio device so that my voice would be a little more audible and appropriate to you. Just give me a moment. Yeah. So I hope now the voice would be a little more clear. So now what you can do is, so in case if you want to quickly identify Python 3.8 version and what's being coded into it, so you can always explore that using current Python version in C. So you can quickly search for GitHub C Python. Over this GitHub repository, you will quickly able to access the current Python programming language source code. As you all know, Python is built over C programming language. So if you want to explore the source code, you can always visit github.com/python/cpython. So Python and C, all the source codes of Python programming language, including the grammar, including the libraries which are utilized, including modules, objects, parsers, everything is available over here. Now, generally, when I get started with programming on any of the latest development version, I always focus on the objects. So you would have heard about various objects like integers, string, float, double, and there are so many data types available. Each and every data type is available within this objects directory. So somehow, if you ever thought that I want to see how integer is implemented, I want to see how float is implemented, you can quickly explore that over Git, and you will get some ample amount of information, which is like hidden information, which is not even available in the references. So you can explore a lot more, just like a hacker. You can explore a lot more information about each and every individual objects and data types available. So here, if I show you, hopefully you all have used integers, you all have used float, you all have used dictionary, tuple, set. All these objects are available in .c file here, and you can quickly explore it. So let me just quickly take you to that. So let's say if you search for an integer object, or if you search for something like a float object, so you can quickly search for like this float object. So you will quickly get that object here. So you can see that we have a float object.c file, wherein you can see the implementation of float in C. How float for Python is actually implemented in C programming language. So if you click here, you can quickly see the source codes. It might sound a little complex for a beginner, so we don't need to dive into C as of now. But in case if you're curious enough to explore hidden functions which are available, so you are always welcome, and you can quickly explore it. Okay. Certain great information which I get to know about various data types and various data structures is through these documentations, because I exactly get to know what search algorithm they use, what sort algorithm they use, what is the time complexity of the default function which is used in Python, what is the space complexity of a default function available in Python. So we get to know such information from these documentation. So it's always a good idea. If you are curious enough, you can quickly dive into the source codes, and you can identify about what algorithms, what data structures by data type. So one great information I would definitely like to share with you all, and that's with respect to dictionary. There is one very important question which is generally asked about dictionary, that what data structure we use when we implement a dictionary. So generally the options, people are not clear about it. So always what you can do is you can check back the source code of the language, and you can see a dictionary uses which data structure. Generally Python uses hash tables. So if we click on dictionary object.c, you will be able to explore that. So if we go here, so now you can see that here. So the dictionary object which is implemented, so it implements the dictionary's hash table here. Okay. So generally dictionaries are built over hash tables in C programming language, and this is how Python has been made. Okay. So you can quickly explore a lot of things. Moreover, you will later, when you become a senior level programmer, many of you are senior level programmers. So when you explore deep dive into it, you will also explore there are certain issues like collisions, how hash collisions are avoided, and there are certain deep dive things. So you can always explore here that how do they overcome collision problems in actual implementations in the latest Python language or in the latest Python version. So these are like pretty good. So you can always explore about insertion. You can always explore about how they read data, how they update it, how they delete it, and how they are having the garbage collection. So it gives immense information about the default structure and default data type which is available in Python. And then any time whenever we need to upgrade, we write our own functions and we upgrade with the relevant data with respect to the industry data, whatever is available. So I'll just quickly take you back to Python 3.7 version, which is the stable version, which we will be using during our implementation. Okay. Now, so how to get started with it? So it's always a good idea to get started with the Start Here section with Python references. You can quickly refer to tutorial option here. When you click on it, you will reach to the Python tutorial, wherein you will always get to know that Python is an easy to learn, powerful programming language and various other things which are available. The Python interpreter is easily extended and it is implemented in C or C++. So that's like a quick piece of information which you should know when you get started with Python. So now let's come to the important part, the Python standard library. What Python can offer us if we are a data scientist and if we are a data engineer, and if we want to use Python, what can Python do for us? What all data types it offers? So we have to identify it. And if it can satisfy my need, then I will be continuing with Python. In case if there is a limitation, in that case, I try to find a third-party library which has been built by someone using Python. So definitely that is also appreciated. Apart from that, in case if we don't get any of those, so we are left with only one option to write our own C codes and make something with respect to Python and integrate it. Or else you can also use any other programming language and integrate both of them with a translator kind of stuff like JSON, and you can go with like REST services and data transformation between two different languages. So I'll just get back to 3.7.2. So when we start about discussing about Python, so the first thing which we need to do is we always get started with an informal introduction to Python, wherein numbers, strings, list, if statements, for statements, break, and how these things are implemented. So what you guys need as when you start this program, you need to understand these three things initially: how numbers are created, how strings and lists are made. Then you should also understand if, for, range, break, if, for, range. These three are very important function. So as to get started with Python from the control flow section, followed by then the most important would be the data structure which we will be using. Okay, so you need to understand in depth about lists, the stacks, queues, the delete statements, tuples, sets, dictionaries, and the loop techniques. So if you get to know these things, you can consider yourself as pretty good in Python. Okay, and implementation of these things are very easy. It's very easy minded. So let's just have a quick look into how we are going to implement certain things in Python. So are you all, is everything make sense to you till now, whatever I have spoken? So we are starting with Python programming language. Python is built over C programming language. If you want to explore the source code, that how it is implemented, you can go to github.com/Python. If you want to see how you can use Python for various things for representing your data, we can always get started with this tutorial section for 3.7. In order to represent the data which will be available to us, the first thing which we need to understand is how we are going to define numbers, how we are going to define strings, and how we are going to define lists initially. Once we are done with that, we should be able to control the flow of the data during our process, whatever code we will be doing in, and then how we will be handling data. So this we need to understand. Once we are clear with these functions, then we can quickly take up some third-party libraries and we can perform Python for data science. Okay, so let's just quickly go for it. I would be very quick and on this part, and I just want you to give some basic implementations of these functions and numbers so that we can do that parallelly. So on the left hand side of my screen, I'm going to open the script. You all can also open the script on the left hand side, as well as I'm opening my collaboratory here so that we will be able to code that well. Let me just put it on one side and the second one on other side so that you all will be able to implement certain things. Okay. Now, so let's just get started with a new code cell. I will definitely go to the last cell and we'll quickly begin with certain basics of Python, and then we'll proceed towards Python for data science. Okay. So this is going to be a quick beginner, Python for beginners, so that you understand how you're going to do. So the first thing which we will be doing is we will represent data with numbers and strings, let's say, initially. We're going to represent data with numbers and strings. And what Python has to offer. Okay, so what Python has to offer, Python offers you an interpreter which can interpret numbers just like a simple calculator. So if you all can see, the interpreter acts as a simple calculator. You can type an expression and it can write and give you the value. So you can utilize basic mathematical operators like plus, minus, into, divide. And you can also use parenthesis, which is used for grouping in Python. So we can do that. So let's get started with some basic mathematical operations. So let's represent numbers. Represent numbers. Okay. So let's say if I want to represent like value like 10. So if I type in 10, Python is capable of executing the cell and interpreting the same value, and it is going to output whatever has been interpreted. So the interpreter can individually take the mathematical number and it can give you the value back. Okay. Now, what next I want to do? Let's say if I want to perform some mathematical operations, let's say you can quickly type in 10 plus 20 on a notepad, and if you're interpreting it with Python, so the line of statement will be interpreted just like the numbers, and you're going to get that calculated. I can go deep dive into lexical analysis of this also, so as to make you understand how regular expressions have been created in a grammar, in a context-free grammar, and how this processing is done. But since I don't want to make this session seems very complex and very depth as of on the second day of the training, so I'm avoiding it. So I'll definitely take you someday on the deep type of lexical analysis, that how exactly Python has been coded, how regular expressions read each and every character and how it converts it into a token so as to make sense to a machine, that what are the keywords written and how to interpret it. So definitely, I'll definitely take you to that part also someday. But as of now, we'll be just using Python as an interpreter for interpreting our codes. So you can also operate some mathematical operations like 10 divided by 5. So you're going to get the response like 10 divided by 5 will be 2, and somewhat like this. So when you have to represent number, you can always define mathematical numbers, and Python cell can act as a simple calculator. Apart from that, you can also go for complex statements like mod statements. You can go for multiple operators like into, divide. So it's a simple one. Any mathematical operation which you want to perform, you can quickly do that. So let's say if I want to go to 5 into 3 plus 2 divide by 10. So depending on the parenthesis, it is going to execute. So what I can do is I can say, I'm going to multiply 5 into 3, and then I'm going to, let's say, divide 2 by 10. Let's see, we're going to get some, whatever the answer is. So I've divided 2 by 10, I've got 5 3s are 15, and I've got certain response. Okay. So we can do that stuff with Python. So you can use parenthesis. Now, what next you can do? You can use double star in order to calculate the powers. Let's say if you want to do some square. Okay. So let's say if I want to do 5 square, 10 square, 20 square. So you can use this operator double dot in Python. Okay. And if you want to calculate 10 raised to the power of 2, then you can quickly calculate it and you can get the output here. Okay. So you can use Python somewhat like this. Now, the next section which you need to understand is the equal to sign. The equal to sign is the assignment operator, and it is used to assign value to a variable. Okay. So I hope everybody is comfortable with what a variable is. Wendy, Hussain is a programmer, so not a problem at all. Sanika, I hope you understand what is a variable. You have some experience with visual basics, and Mansi, you also know what a variable is. So now let's say if I would like to take something like, let's represent age of Sumit sir. Okay, so Sumit sir, I'm going to expose your age today. So I don't know his exact age, but I hope 29 or 30 he would be. Or if you want to correct me, you can tell me.
You can -5 years, I would say. I mean, I'm just kidding. No, that's fine. That's the age. It's 30 already.
That's the age, right? See, I can predict your age sitting in India. Okay, so let's see. So what I have done here, I have taken a number 29, and using the assignment operator equal to, I have stored this value onto a variable known as age, let's say. Okay, so I hope this makes sense to everyone. And Python gives you a beauty. So if you run this cell, so the value will be stored onto your object age, and post that you can utilize this variable on any of the subsequent cells. Okay, any of the post subsequent cells, you can use this variable. So let's say if I want to check the content of age, I can quickly type in age and I can run this cell. So if I run this cell, I generally use the shortcut Control Enter to execute the variable and to execute the cell, so that what all statements have been written, they gets executed. So I've got a chat message here. Sanika said yes. Okay, great. So now I think you all are comfortable with how we can create variables. So now let's go with this example. So we are going to define width, we are going to define height, we are going to perform a mathematical operation, and you're going to get a number. So you can quickly do that just as an assignment. So let's say width is going to 100. Then I'm going to create another variable, height. Height is going to be, let's say, 200. And then I want to multiply height into width. So I can always do that. And whatever the value is, let's say I'm going to store that into result. And finally, I'm going to print the result. I'm going to give the content of the result. So let's say I get this value somewhat like this, 2000. So now you can see that whatever number you take, you can assign that number to a variable. Okay, so 200 will be stored onto height. Then we have multiplied height into width. So it's pretty clear that when you write a programming code, so always the left-hand side part executes first, and whatever is the output of that, it gets stored onto the variable. Okay, and when you run the variable individually, you can quickly see the content of that variable. Okay, so I hope this makes sense to each and every one. Now what we are going to do, okay, let's go for the next cell and let's do something more important with respect to numbers. So I hope this is clear to everyone. So this was about numbers, what all you can do with numbers. Now we need to go into the strings part. Okay, you can quickly go for displaying strings. So when you're done with the numbers, so let's quickly deal with strings. Now, when I talk about strings, beside numbers, Python can also manipulate strings, which can be expressed in several ways. So they can be enclosed in single quotes. Okay, so let's say if I want to define a string and I type in something like Devanshu Shukla. Okay, so this is considered as a string. So if I run it, so I'm going to get Devanshu Shukla in return. So something enclosed with single quotes is considered as a string statement. You can also create a string with double quotes. and you will get the same result. Okay. Now you can also use slash to escape the quotes. And what does that mean? So in case if you want to define a single quote within the string, then you can use an escape character for it. Okay. So let me just quickly take you there. So if I type in, let's say I type in Wendy Broad. So I have used double quotes here. So when you use double quote, that will also print it. So you get a string known as Wendy Broad represented over here. Now what I want to do is, let's say if I want to write doesn't, okay, let's say if you want to type something like this, doesn't, okay, then what will happen? So somehow, let's say if I type something like does not, and I use the string somewhat like this. So this is not going to be printed, and I'm going to get an error. So let me just quickly show you. So if I do that, so it says that the syntax which we have used here is an invalid syntax. Okay. So whenever you execute an error in Jupyter Notebook, the exception will always give you the name of the exception and the reason that why the exception popped up. So you can always identify what is the issue with your cell, and you can quickly check back. So now if I want to represent this slash, then what is the option? So you can always use the escape key before a quote so that it gets printed. So now if I put in a single quote to escape this, you will be able to quickly execute it. So now when I run doesn't, I get that printed somewhat like this, doesn't. I hope this makes sense to all the people available over here. Is it clear? So we have got the numbers, we have got the strings. You can use the escape characters whenever you need to use the escape key as a string, then always it's a good idea to use an escape character and you will get the message. Okay. Now what next? So let's go to the print statement now. So now one of the important thing which comes in is a print statement. So as of now, you can see that when I have executed a single quote line and a double quote line, only the last line got executed and I got that name. Okay. Now, if I want to print both the lines, then in that case, I need a print statement or a print function. So whenever I ask my interpreter to print something with a print function, it is never going to skip any of the statement and it will print all the print statements as asked by me. Okay. So in that case, what should I do? So now I will be introducing you with the print statements. Let's understand that. So how can you print using Python? So that's going to be a very important thing which you guys need to understand as of now. So let's talk about the print function. Okay. As I already told you, whenever you need to take a help on any of the function in Python, you can always put a question mark. You can always prepend a question mark. So when you prepend a question mark and when you run the cell, you get the document string open for that function. Can you see that? Can you see that document string available over here? Yeah. So here the document string displays you the syntax which you have to use. Now when we print, you need to provide a value which you want to print. And what all values we have? As of now, we have a number value, we have a string value which we can print in. Okay. Later, we will also get to have like list which we can print in, and there will be a lot more things which you can print on screen. Now, after providing a value, you can see that triple dots here. What does this triple dot mean? Triple dot means when you want to print multiple values with a print statement, you can pass as many values by providing commas. So if you use a comma and if you want to print multiple variables, you can easily print multiple variables by putting comma and you can pass in those variables. Followed by these parameters are like necessary parameters which needs to be provided to the print function so that it prints that value onto the screen. Apart from that, there are certain optional parameters. So if you see separator here, so by default, when anything will print, there will be a space separator between multiple variables when you print. Okay. So let's say if I have two variables, Devanshu and Shukla, and if I print both of them, naturally there will be a space by default. Okay. You can always change the separator whenever you want. And I'm going to give you certain examples on it. At the end, when the print statement gets ended, you will get a new line operator by default attached to it. Okay. So when you print, you get a new line operator by default appended at the end of the string. In case if you want to change it, you can always change the end operator. Okay. You can pass the end operator. Moreover, by default, whatever value you will provide, it will be printed on the standard output stream. Okay. In case if you want to change where you want to put this value, you can always select the file variable and you can provide in a path of a file where you want the content to be printed. So you can print the values within the notebook as well as you can print the value into a file also. Okay, into an external file. So such things are available. And flush is that when you have printed, if you want to vacate the variables, if you want to free up the memory, you can always use flush. Okay. So it's a morning, I think, and Wendy seems to be a little sleepy in the morning, but that's fine. Okay, so I should like put in some jokes as well so that you guys stay awake and understand how this is happening. It may seem a little complex in the starting, but it's actually very easy when you will be implementing these things. Okay, so I'm just diving into a little theory in the starting so that you get that right approach so that you can help yourself whenever it is required. You don't need to search on Stack Overflow or you don't need to search on various other things. You should have the right approach so that you will be able to identify that what is the absolute fundamental for that and how to overcome that challenge. So that will be like pretty helpful when you get started. Now, so with print, what we're going to do, we are going to print the values to the standard output stream. Okay. Or you can also print to a file. Both the ways you can utilize it. Okay. So separator will be a string inserted between values. End operator or end variable would be the string appended after the last value. So you can always read the information from the document stream. Whether to forcibly flush the stream, you can do all these things. So now let's say, now that's a task for you. So let's say I have a variable, let's say a name, I set Devanshu and I typed in surname and I'm taking a string known as Shukla. So I've made up two strings. One is Devanshu with a single quote and another is Shukla with a double quote. And now I want to print these values. Okay. So as I told you, you can always pass the string or else the variable. So let's say first thing which I will do is I'm going to print a value. It's going to be the single value which I will be printing. So let me just comment it, print the name, or I will also call it as single value. So you can always print single values. So when you print, you get Devanshu. Okay. Now, if you say that you want me to print a statement before it, so what I can do is I can always write it somewhat like this. Name of the user is. Okay. So that's like first value. I have added a comma and then I have typed in the name. What name I want to print in. Okay. So you can see that before this double quote, I have not passed any extra space here. There is no space here. But when you print the statement, you will get a space between is and the name which is appended. Okay, this one. So this is the by default separator in Python. Okay, you get the variable separator as slash. Is that clear? Now, so what you can also do is, let's say if you want to print in both the variables, you can pass in name and surname. And when you do that, you get the third statement printed as well, Devanshu and Shukla. Now, if you want to say that I want to replace this dash with another separator, So what I can do is I can always do this. I can pass in a name, I can pass in the surname, and I can change the separator. Let's say I want to change the separator to dash. Okay. So if you want to change the default separator, you can always pass in SEP value, which was available in the document string. And now when you run this statement, you will always see that the default space operator has been replaced with the dash. Is that clear? Is that clear to all the participants?
Yes.
So are you comfortable with the print statement now? So with print, you can pass in a single value, you can pass in multiple values, you can pass in your custom separator. And now let's say if I pass in 3 values, okay, let's say I want to say name is, okay, somewhat like this. So I said name is, then I pass name, then I pass surname. I've passed in these 3 values, and I've passed in that the separator would be dash. Okay. So if I say somewhat like this, then what is going to happen? Let's run it and let's test. So now you're going to get an output. Name is dash Devanshu dash Shukla. So this is what you can change with the separator. You can always utilize separator when you print in the statements. So this is quite effective when we make comma separated values, and you can always put in a comma as a separator and it does that for you. So let's say if I put in comma and if I run that, so this time I'm going to get the statements I import like this. Name is comma Devanshu comma Shukla. Okay. So I hope this makes sense. Have you all executed the print statements along with me? So print is pretty helpful. You can print all these data in this standard output stream. The output which is coming here is from the standard output stream. You can always provide a file path and you can always store the value into a file on the local machines as well. But since we are working on cloud, we don't need that as of now. So let's go to the next statement. Now, so I'm here on to the next cell. Am I going too fast? Is my pace fine? Yes, I hope the pace is fine to all the participants and you all are able to code it along with me. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Great. Nice. Now, so let's go for it. So we have got numbers, we have got strings. So there are certain operations which you can perform on string, which would be like pretty useful. So let's say this is one thing. Let's say if you want to pass in 2 statements, so you can always use the parenthesis. This option is available so that you can join both the statements. Okay. Moreover, this one is good. You can always access the characters with respect to its position. So let's say I would like to execute that for you. So let's say I've got a name. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to print the first character of name. I want to do that. So I can pass in name, and from the first character, I can quickly access the index number 0. Okay. So index number would be 0. And let's say I'm going to print the statement and I'm going to call it as first character. Char is, comma, let's put name behind this. So now when I do this, so I'm going to get the first character from the name. Let's quickly run it. So when we start from the character from the left hand side, so it starts from the index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you want to access the last character, so it's always -1. Okay. So this is how you can quickly get that. If you want to print last character is, and I can always get started with this name -1. And when I print that, I get the output. The last character is U. So I've passed in my name Devanshu. I've got D and I've got U. So these are certain things. Now this is slicing. Okay. This one is very important. Sometimes when we need to identify certain characters from a pool of text, then we make use of slice. Okay. So let me just quickly give you an example using a paint box or anything. so that will be like pretty clear to you. So when we slice it, okay, we call it as position I and j. Let me just do that for you. So let's say we have like a box here. Let's say we have certain characters. A quick explanation to you all: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's say I've got like 5 characters, and I'm going to put in certain values. Let's say this is going to be A, this is going to be B, this is going to be C, okay, and this is going to be D, and this is going to be E. Now the concept which I'm discussing here is slicing. Slicing is very important. So slicing is always done using a bracket with I colon j, okay, wherein we call I as index and j as position. Sorry, and j as position. So how we do that? Let's say, so if I type it here, this is going to be my indexes. I'm going to represent it indexes at the bottom, and I will be representing positions at the top. Okay. So if I talk about here, so this index will start from 0, followed by the next index will be 1, followed by other index will be 2, and 3 and 4. 3 and 4. So let's say this is the index values 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I talk about the position, position always starts from 1. So let's say this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, 4 and 5. Okay, 4 and 5. So now let's say if I want to slice in, let's say I'll just annotate it. So now I'm asking a question with you all. Let's say I want to slice B, C, and D out of this using this way. So you can just put me onto the chat that how we should do it. Okay. So accordingly, what we should do is when we have to slice, so I'm going to pass in whatever word I have. Let's say this is A, B, C, D, E would be the alphabets. So let's say I'm going to access the alphabets, and I have to pass in the index. So I can start my index from 1. I can put in this semicolon, and I can provide in the J. So J position will be 4. So when I pass this value somewhat like this, so output of this statement in Python will be B, C, and D. Okay. Does it make sense to all of you? Is it understood? Yeah. So slicing is very important as of reading the characters and converting it into tokens is concerned. So we will be doing that because later you will be dealing with various data sets which involves a lot of text. So in that case, slicing is done so as to identify the right keywords to perform tokenization and lemmatization. Certain unsupervised learning examples, you will be dealing slicing much rigorously and much deeply. Now, so once you're done with that, so let me just quickly take you back to the code where we have been implementing the series and where we have been implementing that. So let me just quickly take you to the slicing example. And by the time, let me just remove the annotations here so that the screen gets clear. Yeah. So let's implement slicing. Okay, guys. So let's say I'm making an alphabet here. So how will I make an alphabet? Let's say I make an alphabet A, B, C, D, E. So you're going to get a string with the name alphabet, and it will store A, B, C, D, E. And now if I ask you that slice out B, C, D, then what we should do? So we are going to type in alphabet, and with respect to the image which I have just shown you, so I'm going to pass in the value of the index and the value of the position, so as to slice out data from the characters or from the piece of alphabet or from the piece of text. So what I will do, I will quickly access alphabet and I will type in index as 1 and position as 4. So when we do that, and if we run, so when I slice out that, so it gives me BCD. I hope this is clear. So can you understand the slice part? So here what they have done is they have taken a character known as Python, and when they have asked from the position 0 to 2, so it has taken P, and the position starts from 1, so it took the second character, so P and Y has been sliced out in this case. And in our case, when I have asked to get started from index 1 and to end up at position 4, I got BCD out. So now a simple question with you all. So what I want ABCD to be filtered out. So you guys have to slice out ABCD and just give me the response in chat. So you have to slice out ABCD out of alphabet, and please let me know what is going to be the result. So quickly test it on your interpreter and send me the response on chat. So guys, please tell me the response on chat. Alphabet 4:5. I think it's going to be wrong. I want to slice out ABCD. Okay, you sliced out ABCD and you just kept E. From alphabet, what I want the output should be ABCD. The output should be ABCD. Yes. Mansi, I have got your answer. That's pretty correct. So, Hussain, Sanika, and Wendy, please send me the response. I'm waiting for your response again. So I've got the right answer for Mansi. And I'm expecting answers from Hussain, Sanika, and Wendy again, so that you guys, I would be sure that you guys got it. So if you can quickly slice out ABCD. So I want output should be ABCD. Output should be ABCD. So what you can do is you can unmute your mic and you can respond here. So now you tell me, if I want A, B, C, D to slice out of the alphabet, what should be the index of A? What is the index of A? Can you guys tell me? It is 0. And what is the position of D?
4.
Yes. So the output should be 0:4.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that's clear.
Yeah.
So now if we execute that here onto the script. So
I guess there's a, hey Devansha, I just want to interrupt. I guess there is a confusion. I guess Wendy might be confused actually. So Wendy, you have to, if you go back to the page itself, like the previous page with the indexing and position.
should I go back to this page here?
Yeah. So there is one, when we say I or J, we have to look like when you have to start, look down I, when you have to end, look up J. So the I starts with 0 because it's an indexing, but J is the position, which we will end our string. It starts with 1. So that's why you might be confused 0 with 3. It's 0, 3, but it's going to be like 0, 4. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I hope there is some. So have you got that, or it's skipped? Okay, so should I address that again? Should I address the slice part once again so that you all can relate? So just a quick brief. So what is slicing? Slicing means filtering text content out of the strings. So when I have to slice out some content, we use this formula I:J when we have to slice out certain characters from a piece of string. To do that, the first value which we have to provide is an I, and I means index value which needs to be provided. Okay. The end position, the starting point was I and the ending point was J, where my parser should end reading the content. So J, the end position is always defined with the position. Okay. Now, so if I say I want to filter out BCD, let's say I want to filter out BCD. So the starting position of B, I need to identify the index of B. So index of B is represented with I here, which is 1. Okay. So the parser is going to capture this one out. Then it will go to the next position. It will filter out that also. When he switches to these different positions, it will reach to the end point. The end point is J, let's say. Okay. The end point where the parser should end up reading the characters. So we define it with the position. Position we define for D is 4. So when we type in alphabet 1:4, we get index 1 to be filtered out, then all the contents in between, and the content or the character which is available at position number 4. So here if you see, the position number 4 element is D. So B, C and D will be filtered out of the string. So whenever you have to slice out. Is it clear now? Okay. Now I am asking, so if I clear the drawings here, and Wendy, if I ask you, now if I want to filter out C and D, what statement should I write here? What should be the I value? What should be the J value? So that I get C and D out of the string. So when we have to filter out C and D, what will be your approach? You tell me. How will you approach towards extracting the content? The first thing you have to do is you have to check the starting point. So we should start from index number 2. So C, you have to start from the index value, because I here represent index. Index will be 2. So what I should do here, I should write somewhat like this. So to filter BCD out, I will type something like alphabet, and I will start from the index position 2. I will use the semicolon so that I will be reading all the characters, and I will end the position of D. What is the position of D? It is 4. So I type 4 here. So when I execute this statement, I'm going to get C and D filtered out. That's clear now? Okay. So now, one more challenge we can quickly take up. Let's go here. So I've got a chat here. Alphabet 2:4. Yes. Okay, I've got the answer 2:4. So now again, so let me just quickly stop the annotation and let's go further. So Wendy, again, just to run that. So when we run alphabet, we get A, B, C, D, E. Now, if you want to filter CD out, so CD will be on index number 0, 1, 2. It will be on index number 2, and D will be on position number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So I will type in something like 2:4 as you have already written there. And when I run that, so that C and D content is sliced out. Now, so let's just quickly proceed to the next one. So slicing is very important as of extracting content from text is concerned. Okay. So these are the positions to remember. you can always use these position model. So indexes starts from here. So you can start from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of a character. And when you talk about reverse, so the first one, there is no negative index for the first one. Okay. So if you give -1, then n will be filtered out. And you can access those characters by skipping one character from here. So that's how the parser reads the content from the text. Okay, now, so let's just quickly proceed further. So this is how basic slicing works on Python. So that was all about numbers and Pythons. Now we should come to some more important information display. Now, so to represent lists, or you can also call it as homogeneous data. As of now, if you see, you can represent only one value, okay? Either with a name, or sorry, either with a string or with a number. But if you want to represent list of values, then what we are going to use in Python? So Python offers us some compound data types, which are written over here. These are used to group together the values. So if you have multiple values and if you want to display those values with a compound data type, then the most versatile is the list. We can use it. And the list can be written with comma separated values of items between square brackets. Okay. So how do we create a list? We create multiple values separated by commas and starting and ending with the square brackets. So that's how we can make a list. So if I type here, so my first list can start with a square bracket, and let's say I would like to push in some name, let's say Devanshu, let's say I would like to put Wendy, I would like to put Hussein, for example, like this. Okay. So now here you can see that I have passed multiple values separated by commas and between the square braces. So that becomes a list. List is a compound data type, and it is most versatile when you have to group together multiple values. Okay, so we use list in that case. So now if I print that, or if I like put it onto a variable like team, let's say. Okay, so what I did, I have taken a few names, I have made a list of all the names, and I have saved it onto a variable known as team. So now let's say I want to print team names. Let's say I would like to print something like this, and I pass in the variable team. And if I run that, so this time you're going to get the list of the members within the team. Is that clear? So that's like the third way of representing multiple values when we talk about Python. So whenever you have to represent any piece of information or any data in Python language, you can either use number, you can either use string, and you can use a list, with which you can offer compound information, a grouped together information of integers and strings. Now there is one more thing. If you want to put the combination of information, like let's say if I say make a profile of user. So let's say I would like to list some important information of a user. I can also do that. So let's say I make a variable profile, and between a list, I pass a name of the profile. Let's say I pass Hussein. Let's say I pass, sorry for the offense, but let's say I take your age as 30. Okay. Then we can take up a mobile number, somewhat like this. Let's say 9891799076, let's say. And we can take up another string. Let's say he's a program manager or a programmer. So I can take up various information about a person, and I can quickly use those information. I can take up integer, I can take up strings, I can take up integers, and I can combine that information in form of a list, and I can store it onto a profile. Okay. Let's say I make a variable, instead of profile, I make it as Hussein. And now let's say I'm going to print, tell us about Hussein. Okay. So let's say I've printed somewhat like this, and I pass in the list Hussein, Hussain. Now when we run it, so now you're going to get the complete list information within that variable. So Hussein becomes a list wherein certain information about Hussein is available. So Wendy, is that clear? Yeah. Now, so you would have seen various information like, let's say you buy something from Amazon purchase, let's say, okay. And let's say we have a shopping cart. For example, let's say we have a shopping cart. And within this shopping cart, you have bought some products. Let's say you have bought in eggs, you have bought in milk, and you have bought in something like cake. Let's say anything. Let's say you have bought clothes. So we can make a list of all the things which are available, and then we can put it onto a shopping cart. And let's say if I go for a statement, print my cart. Okay. So we can quickly show up that information, let's say with shopping cart. So in Python, it is pretty easy to represent information. So if you see your cart, all the information which you have bought is represented in a compound format, and we can quickly display that with Python. So as of now, to represent the information, we have got 3 data types. One is string, second is integer, and third one is the list. I hope that's clear. I hope you all are able to implement integer, list, and the other relevant part. Okay. Now what we can do is, let's go to some major important one. Okay. As of now, you can see that all these data is represented with 1 dimension. You can only have data with respect to one single object. But if you have to represent a data somewhat like multi-dimensional, okay, I would like to have the name of the products. I would like to have the name of the price of each product. I would like to have the unique ID of each product. Let's say I want to have some information like how many products are pending in the inventory. So if I have a collection of information, then I need to take up some mapping data types. Okay. So Python offers you dictionaries. Python offers you dictionary is one such object which is available, using which you can represent multi-dimensional object with key value pair format. Okay. So I'm going to take you to that as well. Let me just quickly get back to the list here. So as of list, there are certain things which you will be able to do. You can append data, you can quickly access information from the list, and that's a part of your further exploration. And I'm sharing this part with you so that you can explore some basic test cases which are represented here, and you can push that on your card. So this is for practice. You can perform some various list operations like append and all, and you can push it onto the next step for programming. Now, I would like to take you to some important thing, and this thing is the data structures. Okay. So if you consider data structures, it is always very important, because how will you be representing data is one of the most important thing which comes in the programmer's mind. That if I have some information, if certain facts are happening, what data structures I will be using, so that I can make my machine understand about the data and I can process it. Python offers you certain lists, and using lists, you can always implement stack, you can implement queues, you can perform list comprehensions, which are very important. You can go for nested list comprehensions. Then finally, you can proceed towards dictionaries. Okay, that's what is like pretty important. Generally, when we program, we use list, tuples, sequences, sets, and dictionaries a lot of times. So these are very important data structures, and you cannot skip any one of them. It is very important for you all. And once you are done with these operations, you can quickly skip to the data science part. So now I'm taking you to more on lists. I'm taking you to that link. 5.1, more on lists. Okay, wherein you can quickly see the functions which you can implement using lists. Okay, so let's say if you have got a list, you can always append, you can extend, you can insert, remove, pop, clear, index an element, you can count the element, you can sort it, you can copy. So there are certain functions which can be implemented. And I want you all to implement these pretty quickly. So let's go for it. Okay, let's go for some basic list operations. Now, how will we do that? So now let's say I am going to get started with a list known as, let's say, names. So when I started names, I started with the first list and I called it as Devanshu Shukla. And when I printed names, I've got a list known as Devanshu Shukla with one element. Now what I want is, I want to add an item at the end of the list. Okay, so let's say I would like to add Sumit to the list. So I'm going to go to names.append and I'm going to add Sumit Dhama to the list. And if I print the list now, post append, you can see that we have like two names now, Devanshu Shukla, and Sumit Dhama has been appended to the last of the list. Can you guys see that? I've got a chat message. Let me just read that. Okay. How about Sanika? Yes, I'll be adding. We will extend the list by appending all the items from the iterable. That also we can do. So we'll take up that here. Sanika, I hope you are able to execute. I'm so sorry, it was not visible on my camera, so I just
no, that's fine. Yeah, I'm able to execute. I'm typing along with yours, so that's fine.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So Sumit sir, is your concern clear?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, let's see. So now what else we can do? So you can extend the list by appending all the items from the iterable. So here you can see that you can have a list or you can have an element using which we can read in the content, and I will definitely come into this as soon as we progress. So now let's go with the insert statement, because the first thing which we do is when we have some data structure, we try to insert data into it, we remove it, we pop it, we clear it. So we'll do that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to insert an item at a given position onto the list. Okay. So how will I do that? The first argument is the index of the element before which to insert the data. So let's say if on the list, if you insert 0, x, then what it is going to do, it is going to insert at the front of the list. And if you take up the length of that list, so it is going to insert at the last of the list. Okay. So that is going to be the last element, and you can also do that with append. So let's say if I want to insert at position number 1 now, I already have two elements, Devanshu and Shukla, and I want to insert new element name into the list. Let's say I'm going to go to names, I'm going to insert it, and I say I would like to insert on index number 1, and the name which I want to insert would be, let's say, Sanika. Okay. Let's go for it and let's print the names. So when we insert that, so now you can see that the name of Sumit Dhama has been shifted from index number 1 to index number 2, and the element inserted between. So you can always take the index name and automatically it gets pushed off, whatever the end elements would be. Okay. So what we did, I had a names list. When I appended Sumit Dhama, it appended at the last. But if I want that instead of Sumit Dhama on position number 1, I want Sanika's name should be there. So I have defined the index. Index started from 0. So Devanshu Shukla was at 0. Then on index 1, Sanika has been inserted and all other names has been shifted to the next index. Okay. Now, I hope you guys have executed this. You have executed insert. So let's go to the next one. Now what's next? So you can remove an element. You can remove the first item from the list whose value is equal to X. It raises if there is no such item. So removes the first item means the first occurrence of your item in the list will be removed. And in case if you do not have any item like that, you're going to get a value error that the item does not exist. Okay. So let's say from the first position, from the names list, I want to remove, and I can quickly pass in this information. I want to remove Devanshu Shukla. Okay. I can quickly do that. And if I print the names list now after removing, you can see that I am left with Sanika and Sumit Dhama now. But if we go next, and if I want to remove something like, let's say I want to remove, let's say Hussein from the list. If I go and try to remove Hussein from the list, then what is going to happen? So it gives me a value error. Okay. So he says list.remove, the X is not available in the list. The value which you are trying to provide is not available in the list. So you can always explore syntax errors and value errors so as to avoid the mistakes in the program. I hope this is clear. So if I minimize that for a moment so that you guys are able to see. So what exactly we did, I've removed the name. When the name existed, we got a new list. And when the name doesn't exist, we got a value error that X was not in the list. I hope this is clear. Is it clear to all the participants? Okay. Let's go for the next one. So these are certain basic list operations which we are performing here so as to understand the basics of how Python works. Can I please see the original names list? Yes. The original names list started from here. Just give me a moment. So I started the list with an empty name, with the name Devanshu Shukla. So I started list operations from here. I took one name Devanshu Shukla. I put that onto names. I printed that out, Devanshu Shukla. Then I have appended Sumit Dhama at the end of the list. So I've got Sumit Dhama. Then I inserted Sanika on index number 1. So we got that. Then we removed Devanshu Shukla out of the list. So we were left with Sanika and Sumit Dhama. When we tried to execute or remove an item which was not in the list, we got a value error that X was not into the list. So that's how we progress with Python. Now what you can do, this one is important. So in case if you have an element and you want to check at what index the element is available, you can always execute index. Okay. So what it is going to return, it is going to return zero-based index in the list for the first item whose value is equal to X. Otherwise, it raises a value error if there is no such item. Okay. So now what I want is, I want to check the index of Sumit Dhama in names list. So what we can quickly do, we can quickly type in the code names. Okay, and we can call this function index, and we can provide the name of the element which we want to check in. And when we run, we get the index. I just need to check. I think Sumit Dhama starts with an uppercase, Sumit and Dhama. So here you can see that the names which have been stored and the data which I'm entering does follow the case sensitivity. So in case, if you're not following the appropriate case, you are going to receive that the item is not in the index or it's not in the list. So you need to use the appropriate cases when you search an item onto the list. Okay. So lowercase alphabets and uppercase alphabets both have the different meaning. So now if I search for Sumit Dhama, then in this case, I get that yes, he's available on index number 1. And if I search for Sanika here, so I get that she is available on index number 0 in my names list. Is that clear? So we got certain list operations. Now I want you to return the number of items which appears in the list. Okay. Return the number of times X appears in the list. So let's say we are going to count the number of elements. So what I want to do is, let's say mistakenly, let's say I have appended Sumit Dhama twice in the list. Okay, I have appended Sumit Dhama again into the list, and I tried to execute in the next cell. I'm going to check my names list. So if I run that, you can see that I have 2 Sumit Dhama here. Okay. Now, if I want to count the number of times, Sumit Dhama is added to the names list. So what should we do? So how we do that? So we are going to use count function on names, and I'm going to count how many times Sumit Dhama is available onto the list. Okay. And I can also print it somewhat like this. Let's say Sumit Dhama has provided by the names, and I would like to like this entries. Okay, so I've got a new statement somewhat like this, wherein I'm going to print Sumit Dhama has count number of entries in the names list. So this is what I'm going to print in. So you can see here I have passed 3 variables. Variable 1, which was a string. Second will be an integer variable into the print statement, which I will get through the count statement. And third will be a 1-word string, which is entries. And now when I run it, so I get Sumit Dhama has 2 entries. So this is how you can quickly check the count of the item available in the list. Okay. So in case if you want to count the number of times an element is added to the list, you can always use the count function. Is it clear? Are you guys able to execute? Mansi, are you able to execute the codes? Yeah, I've got 3 chat messages. Let me just check. Yes. Yes, we are getting all the messages. Yes. And Sanika and Wendy, I hope you guys are able to execute. Yes, great. So as you can see, whenever you have to get started with a programming language, the best way to get started is their own references. Do not go into following a book is always a good idea, because you definitely get an approach of the speaker and the author. But it would be much better that as a programmer, if you want to get started with any programming language, it's always better to get started with their own original documentation, because you will be able to grasp up things pretty quickly, and you will be able to understand what all functions are available in what sequence, and you will be able to grab more out of the language. So generally as a programmer, what we do is when we start any of the language, we quickly refer to the Python documentation or the language documentation, and we try executing all the statements step by step. And once we are done with the basic standard library implementations, we find ourselves as effective programmers. Like we understand the programming language very well, and we do various operations. So next time, if you start with any other programming language, it is always recommended to get started with their documentation, because you're going to get all the relevant functions and you will be able to make out much more out of that language. Now, so there are certain things like you can quickly sort the list. You can sort Sanika, Sumit Dhama, and various other names. That sorting can be done using a key. Then you can reverse the list of the elements. You can copy the list of the elements. So all these 3 functions, you will be taking it as an assignment. So you're going to implement these 3. If you face any error, put it onto your Trello card so that we can help you with that. And post execution of your script, what you're going to do, you'll go to file, you're going to download your file as a IPYNB file, and then you have to upload it on your Trello card, which we have created yesterday, so that we will be able to identify that what is your approach of coding and how you're coding, so that we will be able to tune up the session pretty more effective for you guys. Okay, so you will be implementing these 3 functions, all the pending functions. With respect to list operations, you will do sort, reverse, copy, and you have to push it onto your Trello card. Now, and it's actually not compulsory to push it onto the card, but if you get time, if you get enough time out of your work, then it is like recommended that you can write in that piece of code and you can quickly push it onto the list. Now, a lot of things you can do. You can always use the list as a stack. Okay, so what we can do is, you can see here, the list methods make it very easy to use list as stack, where the last element added is the first element retrieved, last in, first out. To add an item to the top of the stack, use append, and to retrieve an item from top of the stack, use pop without an explicit index. So you can always use the stack just like that. So in case if somebody asks that how do we implement stack in Python, we implement stack in Python using the lists. Okay, so let me just do it here. So let's go for it. Implement stack in Python. Okay, so let's say, so what am I going to do? Let's say I've got a list of some numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got a list, let's say, and I call it as a stack. Okay, and I print that stack. I've got a chat message. Just let me quickly check. I pushed my predict price file onto Trello already. I started a new file today and will push that onto Trello when completed. Absolutely. And Wendy, I have also checked the file which you have uploaded. That was like very nice. And I see you as an active participant on Trello, and you have been uploading all the things continuously. So that's very appreciable. Very appreciable. Now, so we got the stack here. Now what are we going to do? So what we are going to do, we have got a stack. We're going to append in the values. You're going to pop up the values at the last element. So there is no special implementation of stack. It's just like the push and pop methods. So when you pop out of the stack, okay, so when we pop the element, and if we print the stack again, you can see that you will be left with the last item, the topmost item popped up. Okay, so last in, first out. So whatever value we will append, that will be added to the end of the index. That is like push method. And when we pop, the last item, which is at the index last, will be popped out of the list. So that is how stack is implemented in Python. So if somebody tries to confuse you with list and stack, you should be now comfortable that there is no much difference between stack and list in Python. Stack is just like a list, only the method is different. So you can use pop method to bring in the last element out of the list, and that is considered as stack. So if you want to perform push pop operations, so push is append and pop is pop. Okay, so these are the two functions relevant to the stack. In the same way, you can use queues in Python. Okay, so what do we have is, we have a dequeue in fact. So you can access collections package, and from the collections package, you can import dequeue. And when you give a dequeue, you have to pass in the list of the element and you get a queue. So when we have to create a queue in Python, we make use of this function dequeue. Yeah. Okay. So I've got a message from Sumit sir, time check. So we'll try to complete this last queues, and then tomorrow onwards we'll get back with list comprehensions, dictionaries, and we'll get started with data frames. and processing our things. So now what we have to do is, let's see. So we got, it's 8 now. Let me just quickly get back with the last piece of code which we guys have to implement in. So let's implement queues in Python. Implement queues in Python. So when you have to implement a queue, you have to import the collections package. Okay. To import the collections package, you can always use from. You can use from, you can type in the name of the package collections, and from the collections package, you can import DQ. By default, it's not available in the built-in standard library. When you have to use a queue, you have to import DQ from collections. Okay. So collections are also compound data types, which gives you access to various list of information. Now, to do that, when we use this DQ function, you can also take up help from by default document string. So what you can do is you can take a DQ by taking up the iterable. Iterable as in the list you can pass. You can pass in the names list, or you can pass in any other list to its maximum length. And all those elements will be added to the DQ object. So that's what DQ does. So you can pass in an iterable, you can pass in a list of names or any other items, and automatically DQ is going to create a queue. So what it says, a list-like sequence optimized for data access near its endpoints. So in case if you want to perform any operations at the endpoints, it's always recommended to use a queue. Okay, so that you can append at the end of the queue and you can remove from the first. So when you append, it adds to the last. When you pop, it gets from the top. Okay, so that's how it does. So here also you can see that the pop left option is there, using which you can remove the first element out of the list. So let's just quickly do that. So I've got a queue here, and within this, let's say I'm going to pass in the list of the names. So you can always take up a list, and let's call it as, I'll add up a few names, Devanshu, Mansi, Sanika. I've got like 3 names here. And when I have these 3 names, I will add them to a queue, QUE, UE. So that becomes my queue. And if you want to check the content of the queue, you can always check it like this. So your queue displays somewhat like this. Now, when you append anyone onto the list, let's say Hussein came into our queue. So when we appended queue and when we printed queue, we got Hussein has been added to the end of the queue. And now let's say if I say Devanshu is done with his work, or let's say if I'm on a bus reservation line. So let's say if I am done with my bus reservation, so what I can do is I can execute this function pop left. So what pop left is going to do, it is going to remove and return the leftmost element. Okay, I hope you all can see. It's a built-in function which removes and return the leftmost element. So as of now, you can see the leftmost element on the queue was Devanshu. So when he is done working, and if we check back with the queue, so you can see that you will be left with Mansi, Sanika, and Hussain. Okay. So I hope that's all for the day, and you have got certain operations which we executed on Python. Tomorrow we get back with list comprehensions and data structures, so that you will get an absolute insight into certain important data structures like list, tuples, set, dictionary, and various other. Tomorrow, we will also be discussing various career-based responsibilities available in Canada, which we have like explored, so that you will get an insight that what are the current demands of the industry and how will you be able to cope up with the requirements with the sessions which you are following here, and you will be able to make out best out of your sessions. So I hope the basics of the sessions with respect to Python programming, like representation of data with numbers, strings, are done. We have also got to know about list. We have done some operations like insert, append, remove, copy, and various other operations. We have also seen that how list can be utilized as stacks and queues in Python. So I hope we can now consider as a beginner level Python programmer who understand how to represent data, how to handle a compound data type with the list of items, how to do some basic operations on the list, and how to represent those lists in form of stack queues. And from tomorrow onwards, we will continue with list comprehension and the other relevant data structures which are important for data science. I hope this is clear to all the participants. And in case if there is query, please let me know about it so that I can help you with the queries and I'll solve that. Moreover, in case if you get any query later, you can also put in onto your Trello card. And as I see here, I get one type error from Hussein. So Hussein, I see names.remove Devanshu Shukla. And when you put in names, so you get a built-in function, object is not subscriptable. So maybe your name, is the error resolved?
Yes.
Hussein?
Yes.
It's resolved? Okay, fine. Okay, fine.
I was using like a square bracket, so supposed to use the round bracket. So that's what's the issue.
Okay. Fine. So yes, the parenthesis has to be there before the remove function, and then the list has to be passed. Then the name of the item has to be passed. Absolutely. So I hope that's all for the day. And thank you so much for being pretty active during this session. And I promise you some more deep dive sessions on data science so that we will be able to make out some better insights out of the data and make it relevant for our careers. Thank you so much for being available today. Okay, thank you. We'll see you all tomorrow at Indian Standard Time, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And as of your EST, the same time, our session will be available. The meeting ID will be same for the session. And thank you so much for being available.